Welcome to Well Since You Asked Me, the podcast where curiosity sparks conversation. I'm Lynn, your host. In this episode, we're diving deep into the evolving landscape of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the challenges it faces in today's political climate. I'm joined by Karen and Herman, and together we'll explore the impact of recent policy changes, Supreme Court rulings, and corporate responses to DEI initiatives. Both guests bring their lived experiences to the table. Karen has spent years successfully leading training teams, and she, along with her late wife, is and was deeply involved in the arts and culture scene in Austin, Texas. Herman is an active DEI advocate and corporate trainer. He has been married to his husband for 9 years, and they call Southern California home. Both guests also share insights on bias in hiring, the myth of reverse discrimination, and why true inclusion strengthens workplaces rather than divides them. We'll also discuss how rhetoric from the highest levels of government shapes perception of DEI and what organizations can do to remain committed to fostering diverse and equitable environments. With humor, candor, and powerful storytelling, this conversation challenges misconceptions and highlights the importance of showing up boldly, authentically, and unapologetically. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Hi, Karen and Herman. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited to speak with you. So I'm not sure if either one of you watched or read up on the highlights of the State of the Union address that happened a couple of days ago. Personally, I didn't watch it, but I did read headlines, and one of them was how this administration is categorizing wokeness as dangerous. And obviously, there's been some executive orders that have been enacted that derail DEI efforts. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how these policy changes and the rhetoric coming out of the Oval Office are impacting decisions that are being considered at the Supreme Court level, how businesses are conducting their business. Personally, for both of you being part of the LGBTQI community, and for you, Herman, the intersectionality of also being a person of color.
I'm thinking, like, is this some sort of Jedi mind trick? Like, what are they talking about? Like, all of it's nonsense. I don't pay a lot of attention to it because since November, I've been focusing on self-care and taking care of myself because it's all nonsense. I feel like I'm living in an alternate universe. Like, what is going on with the country? This is bizarre to me. But I feel like it's a distraction. Like when they talk about reverse discrimination and DEI and wokeness. What are you talking about, wokeness? Like, being aware of the difference, between what I'm going through and what you're going through. I mean, that's awareness is wokeness in my mind. So I haven't paid attention to, I didn't watch the State of the Union address. Anytime anybody mentions his name, I tune out. But I think it's all nonsense, and I think it's a huge distraction.
Good point.
I shall refer to him as Agent Orange.
Yeah.
We'll accept that.
Yes. I refuse to watch any State of the Union, any address that he does to Congress or anything else, because I know it will be full of lies and misleading statements. So I will not watch it and give him television ratings, which is what he loves. And I agree. I mean, I think that they, meaning the GOP, not just Agent Orange, are geniuses at coming up with words that are incendiary to their followers without really understanding the meaning. They just throw out a term like woke, and every boogeyman out there is in that word. Everything that you're supposed to hate or they hate is in that word. And if you actually ask somebody, what does it mean to you to be woke? Explain to me why you don't like it. I dare say they couldn't explain it. It has to do with DEI and they couldn't get past that. So,
yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you both for sharing that. So both of you are, Karen, you've retired from HR. Herman, you're still in HR. When you think about DEI and how that relates, because I hear you, Karen, and appreciate that information, that most people don't understand what that is, and it becomes this boogeyman term that you can
Mhm.
then use to try and distract Herman, like you said, and then push whatever agenda you have because people are looking over here. So when you think about DEI, what exactly does that mean in the context of HR and in an organization?
It's about equality. It's about giving everyone a seat at the table, recognizing people who have differences that haven't had a fair shake in life. It's giving them the opportunity to have a seat at the table. And I'm fortunate that my company, unsurprisingly, is full 100% behind our DEI programs. We had a meeting to discuss it as a training team and HR team, and we have the data to prove that it actually works. So they have gotten behind it. I'm involved in a lot of different organizations within the programs that they have. And for me, I think it's important, giving visibility to people in marginalized societies. I'm involved in the African American Association that we have at work. I'm also involved in the LGBTQ association that we have within our organization, and it's created relationships. We've learned from each other, and I've gotten more visibility with people that I wouldn't have gotten had I not had these organizations. So they're important for visibility.
Yeah, that sounds great.
As
Karen?
a yeah, as a white woman of a certain age, and that means a old woman, um, I I was the chair was pulled out for me to be at the table.
Mm,
Um, but as long as I kept my mouth shut and sat at very the bottom of the table. And for many people, as Herman said, um, the table was the door was closed. There was no way that you could be at the table. And so, yeah, that whole idea of inclusion um, just says, there's no one should be excluded. The door should be open for everybody. The chairs are there. Pull up a chair and join this organization, join this discussion, join this experience. Um, and so the fact that this current administration, I'm not even sure I can get through this without yelling, that it is saying that we're now going to be an administration of meritocracy. When I look at the cabinet and there is not one person of merit there in their job, they have not done any, maybe Marco Rubio by reason of being a senator and having been on the Foreign Relations Committee, but certainly 95% of them have done nothing to have any merit whatsoever. And what they really mean by meritocracy is, oh, look, nice white people, particularly men, who have tons of money and have given to my campaign. And so, people have been marginalized, people have been excluded. And you just look at the accomplishments of people who have been excluded, and I hate to go down and call it race, but just people of color, people with differences, whether it's other abilities or disabilities. And all of a sudden, when that door is open and they're allowed to be, the achievements are extraordinary. And so, what are they afraid of? That their achievements are going to overshadow their achievements? Could be.
And
it's,
can I
it's a
just add
really
on to
good
that, Karen? I mean, you hit the
Yes,
nail on the head. The work that has to be put in by these people that are being discriminated against is like 50 times more than the people
absolutely.
that are complaining that they don't, that
Absolutely.
their rights are being taken away.
Absolutely.
Like
Yep.
it's ridiculous.
How many people have I seen in my corporate career get promoted and it was like, why? Why? And who else interviewed for that job? And can I see your interview notes? I mean, I come again, I am a person of a certain age, and I come from a time where I had to, when I was training interviewers, no, you cannot put their physical characteristics down. Well, it helps you remember who was there. Why? Did they answer the questions? Do they have the qualifications? I don't care what they look like. You're not interviewing for a beauty pageant.
Right.
I do get a little excited about this. I'm sorry.
No, I love it.
keep it going. I think that's an interesting point, and it kind of brings me to to my next point or question I'd like to pose to both of you. There's this perception that DEI practices promotes favoritism, or you're going to look for a person with differences and actively they're going to be able to maybe get that job over someone else. And so you brought up a couple of different points I thought were very interesting. And I'd like for you kind of to give me some more information on it. So Karen, you talked about merit. And so when you're doing you're doing the interviews and you're saying, what does their physical appearance have to do with anything? Did they answer the question? I think that the DEI, from what I understand, and again, I'd like for you guys to weigh in on this, is that it gives people an opportunity to interview. It's not saying that you're
Yes,
going to get the job because you are a person of color. Actually, that's
right.
never happened to me. So, yes, I'd like to hear what you think about that.
Most, again, people are abysmally inept
Mm,
at figuring out what the skills needed for a job are, because it requires work and it requires thought. It requires really looking at something very carefully. And then once you decide what those skills are, you are interviewing for those skills. There is a lot of people tend to hire in their own image, which is horrible, because if I hired in my own image, we'd sit in my office and talk all day and just and figure out the whole world's problems. And so I need people who are not in my image to balance out my team. And so if you analyze a job properly and you try to be as honest as you can in your interviewing, then cream will rise to the top. You'll begin to be able to figure out, this person I think has what it takes. This person, not so much. And I've seen enough horror stories where the wrong person was hired despite the everybody being concerned about it, but that person knew somebody, or that person had the right look. And it's like, all you're going to do is spend money getting rid of the person because it becomes very hard, and then spending money to then rehire somebody else. And if you want to save money, people, if you want to talk about cutting costs, being smarter at hiring is absolutely one of those things that will help.
Herman, did you want to weigh in on that?
No, I was just thinking, from my own perspective, all of the interviews that I've gone into and I dressed the part, I'm looking good or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
it just decline, 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 because I don't necessarily look like them, maybe, or maybe they, did a social media sweep and they found my Instagram and I'm, in a bikini with Mariah or whatever, I'm just being myself, but,
I want to see that
it's like,
picture.
yeah. People hire in their own image. And I see this in training. I train these people and market leaders. I can tell by the new hires that are coming in which market leader they belong to. It's this like unspoken bias that people have, and they
Yes.
refuse. I don't know. A lot of people just don't want to acknowledge that, but that happens. And back to this whole conversation around discrimination and race, the people that are in power that are spinning this whole tale about DEI is taking away our rights. No, you are in power. We're not taking away your rights. We're
Absolutely.
just asking for fairness.
Well, look at all the research done around people with uh, names that are not mainstream, where companies have actually submitted those resumes with those names marked out, and that person got the interview. Whereas when that same resume with the same qualifications and skills was put before somebody with that name that was not mainstream, didn't you could hear crickets. That tells you all you need to know about bias, whether it's hidden, whether they're aware of it or not. And
Mhm.
I know it's easy for us to be unaware of our biases.
It's also a little uncomfortable to be aware of our biases
Well,
because,
yeah,
like
it is. Yeah.
you look at that and then you have to ask yourself some questions, and those can be uncomfortable questions. You
Hmm.
discover things about yourself that really I don't like this about me, and so it's easier to assign it to something else or someone else where you don't have to define that. You can just say it's DEI. Well, what does that mean? And
Right.
working through this, and it's like it's nothing about giving someone, like we said, that upper hand. It's making sure that we are aware of those unconscious biases, and we are trying to make, like you said, Herman, a level playing field so everybody can be at the table. And I love when you were talking about when more people come together and it's diverse, you get greater goods out of it. So you're
Hmm.
going to be able to advance yourself. And that's one of the things that we learn is that Karen, you said this, like you would have somebody that's like you, and you're not going to accomplish anything other than talking about, I don't know, maybe we're talking about a movie or something.
Yeah.
I've been in your office before, and
Yes,
we
we have had many conversations.
amazing conversations. But we want to have people that are going to challenge you, and you're not going to get that if you continue to hire people that look like you, think like you, and have that group think. So that's very interesting. So kind of thinking about that, Herman, for you, because you're still active in HR, have you had any conversations around reverse discrimination?
Mm.
Has it impacted maybe like the LGBTQI community or other marginalized groups? Has that ever come up in your work today?
Surprisingly, it has not come up in my workplace.
Mhm.
It's something that we discussed, as a organization within the DEI programs, but I haven't had it come up in a way that, oh, I've experienced this, or we're going to take away the programs because this is the perception. We've had the opposite conversations. So I've been lucky in that regard. Like I'm telling you, reverse discrimination in my mind, I can't wrap my brain around it because I don't understand it. But but yeah, I haven't really had any discussions regarding it.
It seems like that your organization is being very active and deliberate in their approach to DEI. What are some of the things that, as an employee and as someone that may be in an executive leadership uh, position at an organization, what can they do in order to facilitate that? Because there is this directive and this rhetoric coming out of the Oval Office and this administration, I think that there's ways that they can still have that inclusion. What are some of the things that you guys are doing that you think that would be effective?
Our senior VP has been very active or very adamant about protecting our DEI organization.
That's
So we already
great.
had a discussion. We've met together, and
Oh.
she was, adamant about saying this is not going away. Again, we have the data. You would love her, by the way, and she reminds me a little bit of you. She's amazing.
Okay.
I'll send you her bio. Um, but she's put her foot down. This is what
Mhm.
it's going to be, and I've aligned with our CEO. She's really tight with our CEO.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it's all good. But one of the things I want to do is be more active and be more loud and proud. I feel like I've stayed in my lane as a trainer, and I haven't really been actively involved as I could be in some of these organizations. But I want to really, really, for the sake of everybody, just be proudly, boldly Black and boldly gay and spread joy
Yay.
in the face of all of this adversity. I think that's my way of dealing with what's going on right now,
Good.
and surround myself with people who support me. And I think I've done that at work. The people I don't hide who I am. I never really did, but I was always very private. Now I'm very, very out with everything that I do. I think that helps and that provides visibility. I've talked with some employees at our national conference in Vegas a few weeks ago, and some people were concerned about things that are going on in the administration. I had a lesbian girl that she came over to me and she was talking to me about being worried about them taking programs away and her being fired. And I
Mm.
looked at her and I said, "That's not going to happen," because I got the information directly from our senior vice president of HR that
Mm.
she's protecting all of our people. So it's sad that
Mhm.
there are people out there that are worried.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think we just got to lean into who we are, and we got to surround ourselves with people that support us and fight together.
I
Yes.
love that. Thank you for
Yes.
sharing. One of the things I heard and I took away from that resonated with me is that your VP is being brave. And so she's creating this space and this environment for other people to follow that lead. And I think you're right that being brave and not just saying this is a safe space, but this is a brave space. Let's be brave together. Let's hold each other up and let's support each other. Karen, I know you're doing a lot of work, even though you're not in the corporate world anymore. You're doing a lot of work in the community. And so I will see posts from you, and I know you're very passionate and very active. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing and your group of people that are
Well,
being very active?
you do what you feel like you can, right? Since I don't have a elected office, but we have a group called Texas Artists for Democracy, which one of our member, Beth Burns, she's an amazing actress and director, and she sort of started it. And we are determined to show up at rallies to support whatever way we can. Matter of fact, they're having a meeting, I think, right now to talk about strategies that we can engage in as a group. So that sort of has just happened. Um, I I try to, whenever I see anything on Facebook, yes, I'm still on Facebook, but particularly Heather Cox Richardson or Robert Reich. I mean, they are brilliant at distilling what happened the day before. So I make sure that I share that. So that people are aware, because they really do understand government and how it works and all of the things that are happening at this incredibly crazy pace. Um, I have, for several years now, I've been engaged with a group called Postcards for Swing States. And what they do is they send you a list. It's people who have probably voted Democratic in the past, and so it's public record. And they send you the postcards, and you buy the postage, and they give you a choice of verbiage to use on the postcards. All you have to do is sign your name. You don't sign your full name or any. And it's encouraging. Most of them have been encouraging people to vote. There was only one time, and I think it was in the 2020 presidential election, that the postcards I was writing really kind of laid out a little bit of the differences between Democrats and Republicans when it came to things like education. But again, I feel like, okay, that's something I can do. I've been invited to block walk, and I just am not there. I am The thought of knocking on somebody's door and engaging in conversation scares the heck out of me.
It
So
does.
I
That is
it
very surprising.
Yeah, it absolutely does. At heart, I am just jello inside. But so those are just some of the things I do. Of course I've got on the phone and called my congressmen, and I've emailed them and things like that. Just doing what you think what you can do.
I think that's important. And what I heard and I took away from both of your conversations, because we know that it is triggering to be inundated with all of the news, the negativity, and you can get down with that. I
Yeah.
think that in 2020, I once that came out and Biden won, I realized that I think I had low grade depression. I had no idea that I was depressed for 4 years. And so you kind
Uh-huh.
of pull yourself back to protect yourself. But what I'm hearing and what I appreciate is that there are ways to stay active and engage. And it's important to educate yourself. And if you have to do that through snippets of information or however you're doing that, because you can then have conversations about DEI, reverse discrimination, and help people to understand what that means. And then keep yourself informed, your neighbors informed, and then get involved in the way that makes you feel comfortable.
Right. But then switch it off. I mean, I was a major NPR listener, and I still am to an extent, but there are times I went, nope, I cannot deal with this anymore. I'm switching to a classical station. I'm putting on some old CDs. Let's listen to Hamilton again or whatever. Even with the news, again, I watch too much news, but lately I'm going, nope. And this week, I have absolutely turned off the news every time he's on because I don't want to hear it. So I think, as Herman said, self-care and knowing what your boundaries are just critical. But can I also talk about just the phrase reverse discrimination for a second?
Yeah, for sure.
What a crock. Again, somebody somewhere at some point had a majority person who felt like he or she did not get a job because they were of the majority and not whatever minority. And so their brilliant idea was to say, let's call it reverse discrimination. Because doesn't that just sound nefarious? Doesn't that sound like there's something underhanded about people who are claiming discrimination? Discrimination is discrimination. If I discriminate against you because you're tall, you're blonde, you're black, you are from a different country, I don't like you, you're my next door neighbor, it's still discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I rest my case.
I agree. I mean, and yes, and if you're going to discriminate, you've got to be in a position of power in order for it to be
Absolutely.
effective.
Yes.
So
Yes.
ridiculous.
It's a stupid term, but it's been an effective term, and that's why I say they're brilliant at mastering at using language. They are brilliant at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The
Amazing.
spin.
Go ahead. What did you say?
The spin, but
Yeah,
it's a manufactured culture war
Mm-hmm.
for the
Mm-hmm.
people in power to
Mm-hmm.
use to keep these people that think that they have the power, but really they're just like everybody else, that they're being manipulated in order to keep these rich people where they are.
Keep them rich and happy, baby.
Rich and happy.
Rich and happy.
Educate yourself and get involved as much as you can and with your comfort level, and like they both said, self-care. That's the key. So we're almost at time here, but I wanted to spend a little bit of time and before we ring off here, first, are there any last minute comments that you wanted to say or anything?
I just want to thank you both. This, even though it was short, is therapeutic for me because I've
Mhm.
totally, when I say I've tuned out and have been in my bubble, I've been in a bubble. Like, I don't know if I've just done the opposite of what I should have and not educated myself on the other side. I've just surrounded myself with people who are so like-minded that when all of this transpired in November, I was so shocked that I had to turn it all off. Like it was bizarre. We were texting, Lynn. You got all my texts. I was so sure that we were in the clear, but hindsight's 2020, right? Like, now I know. Now I know where we are. So this is therapeutic. It's good to talk about these things because Jeffrey and I, we touch on it, but we like to keep peace in our house. We don't even like to bring it in. So like he'll mention something. He's actually my news source. He'll watch more of it than I even know about. And he'll give me little snippets of what's going on. So thank you for hosting this and thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.
And nice to meet you, Karen.
I love to meet. Yeah, I've heard. I love you. I wish you lived near or you come to visit at some point. Absolutely.
Yes, come visit. I would like that.
Yeah.
So, right, it was short, and one of the goals of this podcast is to, like I said, to spark a conversation. So we're going to introduce topics, but we don't want the conversation to end at the end of this podcast. We want it to continue on. We want you to add your comments, to have conversations with your neighbors, with your loved ones. It's important for us as a people to educate ourselves and educate other people and to support each other and find things that connect us so that we can continue to grow and take care of one another. And so I appreciate both of you for lending your voice and your expertise and your thoughts to this conversation. And now we're going to come to the end of the podcast, since you asked me. And so I'm going to ask you, do you have any thoughts on the Oscars or the Academy Awards that just happened?
Oh my.
Anything that resonated or surprised, or it could be clothing or whatever.
I was moved beyond by the performance from Cynthia Erivo and Ariana.
Yes.
That opening
Was
is everything.
fantastic. Oh
Oh my
gosh.
gosh. Goosebumps. That was the
Yes.
highlight for me.
Yes. Yes.
I
Absolutely.
thought Conan did a decent job, but I'm still a little shocked by Honora. Like I feel like there's some sort of conspiracy theory there. I watched that
That's the
movie. I
one
don't get
picture
it.
and I have not seen that one. I saw 6 of them, but I've not seen that one, so I cannot even speak to it.
I saw it and I'm just like, what happened
Yeah.
here? Who
All
phoned
right.
this one in? Because
Yeah,
it was okay.
I got to put that on my list because I've got to see it now that it's won. But yeah, I was very shocked. But I think it's because all the others it was so split. I mean, as much as I liked them, I wasn't like overwhelmed, like, oh my God, this is just fantastic. So I was like, yeah, whoever wins, wins, but whatever. My biggest thing was, oh my gosh, Adrian Brody, shut up. So, and you are never allowed to win again. The first year, you're going to give some kiss to Halle Berry that she did not ask for, and that
Oh,
you remember that? Or
I
did,
don't.
oh, you were probably you were probably too young to remember that. But anyway, oh yeah, he laid one on her, and everybody's like, oh, what's going? And then this year, he's like, shut up. Okay, we got the message. Longest speech ever. So
Yeah.
anyway, so that's my takeaway, as stupid as it is.
No, it's great. So I don't watch the awards just because of the fact that I think that it is rigged. But
Yeah.
but the thing that I took away from it is that when are we going to get to the point where it's not the first time a person of color has won something?
Oh,
First
perfect.
time a person of color has won costume design. And
Costume design,
I was
yes.
thinking about that. It's like we're in 2025 and we're still saying that. But then I thought we're in
That's sad.
2025 and I haven't been able to say the first time we have had a woman president. So there we are.
Hey, is she going to run for governor, Herman?
Who's that?
Is Kamala going to run for governor?
I don't know. I don't really think so. I wouldn't. I mean, I
Well,
don't think so.
yeah, I've read two versions, two sides to that story. Like if she runs for governor, then it kind of takes her out of the running for the next presidential election, which would be dumb. On the other hand, she would be a leading contender to be governor. So I don't know. I'm kind of watching. Apparently she hasn't made a decision yet. So
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah, at any rate. Okay. Sorry. I took us
No.
off track.
No, this is perfect. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me. I hope that you will come back
Oh,
for
anytime.
something else. And you're two of my favorite people, so I appreciate you being here. And I am going to thank our executive producer, John Dunson. I'm going to thank our audio technician, Ryan Sexton. And
Woohoo!
we're going to continue with this podcast weekly. So look forward to the next one. And bye to
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.